Jai. Jai Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jata Padakamalam Shri Gurung Vaishnavangscha. We're on page 7 of the songbook for these prayers. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Om Ajnanatirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manu. Oh, sorry, that's Gurvavishta Supudakam Gunaganera Sisha Shambhushitam Chincha Samasta Veda Nipunam Shri Rupa Pantanugam Govinda Vidamuchalam Varatanum Bhaktan Vitam Sundaram Vande Vishwakurum Chadivya Bhagavat Prem no hi bija pradam Devam Divyatanum Suchanda Varanam Valarka Chelanchitam Sandrananda Puram Sad Eka Varanam Vairagya Vitambudim Shri Siddhanta Niting Shubhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Varam Vande Tang Shuvaram Mareka Sharanam Nyashishvaram Sridharam Shri Siddhanta Saraswati Ti Vidito Gauriya Gurvan Vaye Pato Banuriva Prabhata Gagane Yoga Sankirtanai Maya Vada Tingilo Duragatan Jivani Man Krishna Prema Sudabdi Gana Sukam Prada Prabhum Tang Bhaje Namo Gaura Kishoraya Bhakta Vaduta Murtaye Gaurangri Padma Bringaya Radha Pavani Shevine Vande Bhakti Vinodam Shri Gaura Shakti Swarupakam Bhakti Shastragya Samraja Radha Rasa Sudhanidhim Gaura Praja Shrita Shesha Vaishnava Vanja Vigraham Jagannatha Prabhu Vande Premabdim Vanja Kalpatarubhyascha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Chatatvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktirupa Swarupakam Bhaktavadaram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Trishe Namaha Jayatang Surat. I'm going up on the Jayatang, so page 16. Jayatang Surato Pangor Mama Manda Matergati Matsarvasva Padang Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Devya Drindaranya Kalpadrumada Srimad Ratnagara Singhasanasto Shri Gandharva Shri Govinda Devo Prestali Bisevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasarasarambi Vamshivata Tatastita Karshan Venusvaner Gopir Gopinata Shri Estunaha Vrindaye Tulasi Devya Priyaye Keshavasya cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavacaya Namo Namaha Atanatva Mantra Gurung Bhagavatar Tadan Vyasan Jagat Gurun Natva Tato Jayo Mudiraye Jayasa Parika Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandharva Govinda Sundaro Pada Padmanam Jayastu Jayasa Parika Shishi Guru Gaura Chandra Giriraju Pada Padmanam Jayastu Shakala Vaishnava Pare More Namaskar Ite Kichua Parada Nahu Kamar Hoy Achin Hoy Ben Prabhu Jato Bhakta Jan Vandana Koryami Shabara Charan Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Okay, shall we sing?
I'll be right there.
Okay, page 74.
Just a question. So is that page 16 and 17 like by mistake or it's by design?
Yeah, no, it's because Shula, we're actually that prayer Jayatang Surato Pangoa Mamamanda, that is approaching Sambandhagyan, which means the acquaintance with the whole environment and proper understanding of everything, who we are, why are we here, what is reality, and all these things. And secondly, we're approaching Abhideya, which is the means for coming to the holy lotus feet of Krishna, and that is represented by Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandharva, Govinda Sundarju, and then Gopinath is Prayojan Tat. This is a very technical answer. It was put in the wrong order,
Okay.
and so which.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And then, and Srila Gurudev corrected it. So we just do it in the.
Okay.
It's not like a big deal if you don't switch it around, but because we know we're supposed to, we do it. Okay. Would you like to lead Shri Guru Charana Padma?
Sure. Shri Guru Charana Padma Bhakati Sabma Shri Guru Charana Padma Keva Bhakati Sabma Andamui Savadana Mate the abode of pure devotional service. I bow down to those lotus feet with great care and attention. My dear brother, my dear mind, it is through the grace of the spiritual master that we cross over this material world.
Make the teachings from the lotus mouth of the spiritual master one with your heart, and do not desire anything else. Attachment to the lotus feet of the spiritual master is the best means of spiritual advancement. By his mercy, all desires for spiritual perfection are fulfilled.
He who has given the gift of transcendental vision is my Lord. Birth after birth, by his mercy, divine knowledge is revealed within the heart, bestowing loving devotion and destroying ignorance. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character.
Could have swore I put that book a little closer.
Do you want to? No. You don't have to. I can do it. O spiritual master, ocean of mercy, and friend of the fallen souls, you are the teacher of everyone and the life of all people. O master, be merciful unto me and give me the shade of your lotus feet. May your glories now be proclaimed throughout the three worlds.
I have surrendered unto your fearless lotus feet. Please give your mercy. O Sri Gurudev, Savior of the fallen, please give me your mercy. You are the Savior of the lonely fallen soul. All glories to you, Sri Gurudev.
Hello.
What's the next song? You can sit there and share the microphone with Sudarshan.
All right. What chapter are we on?
15.
15.
What's that?
15.
15, chapter 15. Of the hidden treasure of the sweet absolute. Haribol, chapter 15. Jai Shri Bhagavad-Gita Upanishad Ki Jai. Jai Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Haribol, and this Sri Krishna Arjuna Ki Jai. So, chapter 15, Purushottam Yoga, the Supreme Person. All right, we can. Oops, what did I do with my life? Okay, we can start reading the verses together in Sanskrit, and then we'll just pass the microphone around. Right? Right. Okay, this is page 260. Ready? Everybody? Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Udva Mulam Madasakam Asvatam Prahuravyayam Chandamas Yapavani Okay, I'll just start. The Supreme Lord said, it is said in the scriptures that this material world is like a peepal tree. Peepal. The peepal tree has its roots up and its branches going down. Endless, yet transient. Its leaves represent the nourishing verses of the Vedas. One who knows this tree is a knower of the Vedas. So, commentary. The roots of the tree of this world are said to face upward. The roots are facing upward. No, you're supposed to sit here. I know. It's a wrestling match.
Science.
Okay. The roots of the tree of this world are to face so this is a very beautiful metaphor. Are said to face upward. The root cause is the highest plane. So this material world is not like an independent thing.
Hey Asha, could you give me a guitar?
Oh, I think it's under there.
Oh, was it? Sorry, never mind.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. It is manifest by the potency of the Supreme Lord. So even though it is existing, it's not an independent thing. The cause of everything is the Supreme Lord. However, it is rooted in aversion to the Lord. Its branches are said to face downward, since according to the law of karma, all the species of life from the highest to the lowest branch out from it. It is known as an asvata tree. The word asvata means ephemeral, or that which does not remain in the same state for even a day. Yet it is endless in the sense that it constantly appears in the natural flow of cause and effect, action and reaction. The leaves of the tree represent the fruitive verses of the Vedas, the Karmakanda section. As the leaves of a tree nourish and beautify it, so these verses similarly encourage and illuminate the world. They are actually giving nourishment to the mundane world, that Karmakanda section of the Vedas, which is encouraging us to do something and get some good karma out of it. So these are also part of that ephemeral tree, because the results of good karma are also ephemeral. They're not really based in any substantial reality. The external potency of the Lord Maya is eternal, and it manifests this world, yet the world itself is perishable, inasmuch as it again becomes unmanifest. Although the fruitive verses of the Vedas provide its nourishment, their underlying purpose is rather to enlighten the conditioned souls to take shelter of the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to the mundane. That's the ultimate goal of all of these things. Thus, one who knows these fundamental principles is a knower of the true essence of the Vedas. Anyone want to say something about that? Or
Is there a question?
question about any of that?
Is that clear? It's a little bit of a difficult thing to understand.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
How does the tree stay in the ground if its roots are in the air?
Yeah, so it's metaphorical. Basically means this world of flickering matter that we live in has its root in the divine. There's no source of energy except from the divine. So this world is springing from the divine world, as everything does. So in that sense, the divine world is metaphorically above us, right? Higher than us. And so from there, going downward into this flickering plane, comes the world that we live in. And it's referred to as an Ashwatha tree. The Ashwatha tree is a very active grower in India, so it's always changing. There's a branch coming down, there's a leaf, there's always something changing. It's a very active tree. And in the same way, this world is always moving. And it's very beautiful because it's saying these verses of the Vedas, which are called Karmakanda. Karmakanda generally is referring to, here's how to be active within this world properly. So there's some guidance that's coming to everyone, maybe not the highest guidance, but always there's some push to participate and be active within the world. And that is what is beautifying, illuminating the world, is everyone's active within the world. And that guidance is across many, many planes, not just this world that we're in, but all the worlds are being illuminated by this type of Veda. Veda really just means knowledge. So some divine knowledge is coming to everyone within the world to incite them toward action. And in that sense, there is nourishment given to people. Here's how to properly live. But ultimately, it's enlightening the conditioned souls to take shelter of the Supreme. There's a very mysterious, for me, when I was reading, I remember I was like 19 years old and I was taking a bus from Chicago to Miami to see Gurudev. And I read the Prapanna Jivanamritam for the first time. And in the beginning of the Prapanna Jivanamritam, it says, to renounce is much worse than to exploit. And I found that to be just like so jarring. I couldn't like get over it. And it was very, very busy in Miami. So I just asked the question and I got this like really like brief answer of like, you know, it wasn't to Gurudev, but it was to someone else. And I got this brief answer of just like, you know, just chant Hare Krishna, and, you know, it'll all be good. And I was like, oh, I don't know what this means. But over time, you know, the clarity has come by the grace of Gurudev that there's two choices fundamentally that we have as a soul. You can choose to renounce everything and to renounce even your own individuality. And you can move into the plane of non-action and non-duality, right? Non-difference, the non-different plane, that's called Brahman. And you can also choose to stay in the world, and that's choosing to stay within sort of this temporal reality is participation. So there's two choices that you really are making as a soul. Do you want to renounce and leave everything, including your own individual consciousness? Or do you want to stay in the world of duality, which might include pleasure, it also might include pain, but you're participating? And the Vaishnava scriptures are saying, even if you can't become fully devoted, stay within the world and participate. Because even then, somehow, you're playing the role in this stage of the Lord's pastimes. So in that sense, the Vedic knowledge is coming and saying, hey, stay here. Even if you have material desires, organize them in a way that's at least a little bit beneficial. But always stay in the world, because the world is existing fundamentally for the Lord's play. So always choose participation, even if it's in a lower sense, than pulling back and going into full renunciation of the world. So that last section is saying that, you know, the Veda is causing action, but ultimately the purpose of it is that you might come into connection with the service of the Lord.
That reminds me
by staying in the world.
When Krishna says a human who dies in the mode of ignorance will take birth as a lower life form, whereas a human who dies in the mode of passion will take birth as a human.
It's a human.
With material attachments. It's like, if you're going to go through ignorance, then you don't need this level of consciousness. But everybody's talking about how valuable human consciousness is.
Yeah. So I found that ultimately to be very, very encouraging, right? Because you can set your goal within yourself to say, okay, whatever it is, even though I have so many desires, even though I got all this, and the ideal of bhakti is so high, pure, total selflessness, absolute giving at all times, right? And you look inside yourself and you might be like, wow, okay, I don't even know if I want that, right? And that's still okay. Do a little bit, connect, participate. Don't ever have the mentality to leave.
Sridhar Maharaj, in that essay, he says renunciation is more dangerous in the same way that a half-truth is more dangerous than an outright lie, right? Because like you are supposed to lose your attachments, and you are meant to lose all the suffering that comes with those attachments, but you're not supposed to completely withdraw in that way, right?
Right.
Like you're supposed to attain that in the positive sense, not in like a perfect zero sense that comes with the Brahman effulgence.
Right, because there is a degree of vairagya, right? Vairagya means renunciation. But Saraswati Thakur had a beautiful phrase. He said, yukta vairagya means positive renunciation. Means renounce those things that are not helpful for your service, but don't renounce, right? So a lot of religious people, they tend to become, I guess what we say in modern terminology, Luddites. They'll as society moves along, they'll just be like, oh, it's all bad, you know what I mean? And you might have like Amish people are a good example of a Luddite, right? Where it's just like, this is getting weird. We're just going to keep horses and carriages, and we're not doing electricity, and we're just, we don't need all that stuff. We're just going to focus on our religious life. And in the 1930s, when Saraswati Thakur was very active, and India was a very different place at that time, where there was still a very strong, Smarta Brahmin culture. And for Saraswati Thakur, who was a Brahmin, a very high Brahmin, the idea of using an automobile was completely forbidden. And Saraswati Thakur specifically drove around in an automobile. Just to say, everything is to be used in the service of the Lord. We are not here to say, oh, this is bad, this is good, this type of external thing is the only way, these external ways are not bad. No, if it exists, we will utilize it in the seva of the Lord.
Sure.
And that's yukta vairagya. So not vairagya. Vairagya is, I'm out of here.
Yeah, so that's why it's ignorance as well as renunciation, right? Because it's renunciation while being forgetful of the Lord.
And almost like spitefully.
Yeah.
Because the deepest version of Vaishnavism says everything that's in existence is only in existence to serve the Lord. Right? Krishna Santosh. And we are to view our life like that. My life is for the satisfaction of Krishna. And so whatever is in front of me, whatever duty happens to be in front of me, I will put my full intention and capability into that for the satisfaction of Krishna. I may not understand how or why, but I will give that to the satisfaction of Krishna. But I was just saying that to Janame this morning when I was dropping him off at school. He's just just fully, literally want to go to the Brahma Jyoti instead of going to school. And so it's just Janame, you have to understand, if Krishna's putting this in front of you, there's some good in it for you. And you, even if you can't see the good, you make a sacrifice to Krishna. This is your sacrifice to Krishna. We just talk about it. But actually, what you got to do right now, right in front of you, that's your thing that you need to do to satisfy Krishna. And he's just resisting. And then he's like, okay, Dad, I'll do it.
It is counterintuitive that it's better to do it and do it wrong than to do nothing at all. That is hard to.
That's one of the shlokas coming up in the Gita. Very deep idea coming up. Okay.
Oh, I was just going to ask what you were saying you would rather go to where?
Brahma Jyoti or something like that.
Oh, Brahma Jyoti. Brahma Jyoti means the undifferentiated plane. So it's almost like you could say a long sleep for the soul. It's like this pool of consciousness that underlies everything. But it's undifferentiated. There's no individuality within that. And the soul can go there and reach a state of peace, right? You could say, in the material world where we're full of exploitation, there's negative experiences. And sometimes those experiences are so painful that the soul just says, you know what, I want to stop this. I want to go to zero. I'd rather not be in negative, I want to go to zero. And so you just sort of turn off your individuality and merge into this plane of undifferentiated light. The
Guru Maharaj called it like a dreamless sleep.
So you just sort of stop existing, right? The Buddhists call it nirvana. Nirvana means no forest. It means there's no diversity. There's no variety. It's zero. Okay? Sometimes it's described in the Buddhist literature, there's a flame and the flame goes out. Now, if you're in enough pain or you're fried out, excuse me, I got gum in my mouth. If you're fried out with life enough, that can sound great, And people, a lot of times when people kill themselves, it's the same kind of mentality. It's like, I'm done. I'm out of here. I don't care what is going on or anything. I'm just done. Right? That's full renunciation mode. to the extreme. But actually what Vaishnavism is saying is, not only is life not meant for negative, life is not meant for zero, life is 100% positive. That's the Vaishnavas' thesis that they're putting forward into the world. Life is 100% positive. And to move into each moment with the idea of accepting the uncertainty and offering yourself to Krishna in each circumstance for his satisfaction, and knowing that the Lord is your friend, as Krishna says later in the Gita. Suhridam sarva bhutanam, I'm the friend of everyone. And to trust that, and eventually not just to trust it, but to know it because you've experienced it. That in the most surprising circumstance comes your greatest growth and the adventure that you were seeking and the progression that you didn't know that you had to make, but that you deeply wanted, right? You have to trust the Lord. It's all positive. And that's the contribution of Vaishnavism to the world, and to the most extreme extent under the guidance of Sriman Mahaprabhu. He is essentially saying beauty is the cause of all reality. And does some part of you feel thrilled with the idea of becoming a lover of infinite beauty? Then move toward that. Okay. Jai Shri Krishna. Okay, verse 2?
Yeah.
Adhaschodvam prasritastasya shakha guna pravriddha vishaya pravala adhascha mulanyanu karmanubandhini manushya-loke. Some of its branches extend upwards as the planes of the demigods and celestial beings. Some of the branches extend downwards as the planes of humans, animals, and lower species. And nourished by the 3 modes of nature, its shoots are the objects of the senses. Some aerial roots also extend downwards to take root in the land of karma within the human plane. Commentary: within the expansive manifestation of this perishable yet endless world. Some of the living beings are nourished by the mode of goodness, and they wander throughout the upper planes in the ego of gods and celestial beings. Others, influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance, are wandering throughout the planes of the humans, animals, trees, and lower species, assuming the identities of those species. The shoots of the tree of this world represent the objects of the senses: sound, smell, touch, taste, and form, as transformations of the 5 primary subtle elements, panchatanmatra, produced from the ego of the living beings.
It's very clear there.
So, this is just so profound. The principal roots face upwards, inverted, indicating aversion to the Supreme Lord. Further, some aerial roots face downward, entering the land of karma in the human plane. These represent the human's attempt to enjoy the fruits of their actions, and these aerial roots nourish the tree as a separate secondary cause. So what that's saying is the desires of the human beings attempting to enjoy in all of their actions are nourishing the tree. It means this world is perpetuated in some ways by our own desires. Right? Again, understand, consciousness is the cause of matter. Our consciousness is perpetuating this. Okay? And these are just very subtle, very profound statements. Our desires are producing the objects of the senses. Right? Like, it's a version of, the law of attraction, except real, not some like fantasy land. Like, you're actually from your necessity of enjoying these things, the elements that are needed to create the objects that you perceive are being generated. A very profound thing to say, but that's what the Gita says again and again. So, like, one of the things, again, Srila Saraswati Thakur said is that Gayatri Mantram is shifting your desire from this plane. So if you think about all your hopes and dreams and also your fears, what are they? They're all on this little plane of these little senses, which is a tiny little sliver of reality. Right? We just see a little bit of the light spectrum. We hear a little bit of the sound spectrum. We smell a little bit of what is to be smelled. Right? We can have some very false idea of what things feel like, because they only feel like that because we have the senses to perceive it like that. But that little sliver of experience is where all our desires are. So our desires are in that plane, then where do we born? In that plane. So Saraswati Thakur said, Gayatri Mantram can shift your desires from this plane to the higher plane. So now you're moving your intention, your want, your desire is going to that higher plane. Right? No longer to be born in this plane unless it's desired by Krishna.
I don't know what it is about, like, I've heard you say that before, but I never really got what you were talking about.
Yeah. It's that we're completely caught up. I mean, think about how caught up we are in this. You can see one thing happening in the world and you can be like, yeah! Like it's just in this little teeny little sliver. But we're like, wow! You know, and you can see another thing happen in the world and you're like, oh my God! Ah! You know, you're completely caught up in it. And if you think about, like, what are you worried about if you have anxiety at night or whatever, like, it's all in this plane. There could be, I mean, and there are, actually. This is what is to be understood, you know, within time and space. There are many, many, many other dimensions in this room right now. We don't care about any of them. All we care about is this one, right? So, like, we're not actually tuned in to what's actually real. We're just fully caught up in one little sliver of what exists. And in that sense, as the Vedas say, you're in prison. It's a big prison, but you're in prison, right? So, like, it's that ephemeral but endless, right? And you can only experience this little sliver, and you don't even care about what's going on anywhere else when you're full of desire or when you're full of fear, right? But then there's higher planes. You know, Krishna's saying here, the demigods are living in the higher planes within this universe, you know, that are more motivated by the mode of goodness, etc. And this is all very, very briefly being said in the Gita. If you actually go into the Bhagavatam, if you go into, you know, Bhagavad Purana, I mean, it's going to be explained in extreme detail, right? Om Bhur Bhuva Svaha. But then that's the beginning of Gayatri Mantram. You know, Tat Savitur, like all these things are being illuminated, but it's saying, you know, Gayatri Mantra was like Bhur Bhuva Svaha Mahar Jana Tapa Satya. These are all planes, essentially planes of frequency or planes of perception, of energy within this universe. And we're at the very bottom in Bhu, the earthly plane. And we're only perceiving a sliver of the earthly plane. And there's Bhuvaha. Some people perceive that. Bhuva means the subtle body, what we call the subtle body. But if you actually are in that kind of body, it's not subtle at all. It's like super real. But like that's where ghosts and other kinds of things live. And we actually have a subtle body ourselves that we're very not in touch with. But that's a plane of energy, right? Then Svaha. Svaha is the most physical of the demigod planes, of the Deva planes. Bhur, Bhuva, Svaha. Then there's higher planes. Mahar, Jana, Tapa, Satya. And Satya is Lord Brahma, the creator of this universe, is in that plane. And from each of the higher planes, you can perceive all the planes below you. But from our position in this body, we're completely stuck in this little teeny thing and like freaking out and full of just consumed with our desired outcomes within this little teeny sliver.
And so we were I'm trying to like wrap my head around this. So it's like our desires are like so limited, and so we were put in a body which accommodates them. Is it something like that?
Yeah, and also you can get thrown down to another level as well.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's said that, I mean, and also it can be a very good thing. Like this plane is also can be desirable. Mahaprabhu appeared in this plane.
Sure.
Krishna appeared in this plane, right? And he appears in all planes for his play. But it's said, like even when Krishna's speaking to Arjuna in chapter 6, he's saying, Arjuna says, what if I really try on this path and I fail?
Yeah.
What does Krishna say? You cannot lose on this path. If you fail, every moment that you put toward this path is accumulating lifetimes of enjoyment in higher planes. And at the end of the utilization of that punya, then you will come back down to this plane again and be born in the home of pious people.
Yeah.
And you can begin your spiritual life exactly where you left off, even though you didn't complete your journey, right? So you don't know who's coming from where. It's also said that in the lower planes, as you go through the animal species, you can come up and your next lifetime will be a human, right? At a certain point. So it's like there's many, many ways to come into this plane. Or you could be just perpetuating a karmic cycle in this plane. You know what I mean? So there's many, many, like innumerable ways that you could end up here. But all of them are happening simultaneously. And it's dizzying.
Free will, can I just add?
Yeah, please.
Free will is most broad and active in human life.
Mm-hmm.
That's where free will has its most broad activity. Because in the heavenly planets, you are by karma forced to enjoy.
Interesting.
You have no choice. It's not a real philosophical type of place. Because you're just enjoying yourself and you have no choice about that. And then in the lower planes, it's absolutely too hellish to even think about anything else. And in human life, it has the broadest spectrum of free choice. Your free will is given the broadest plane. So it's, all of these kind of scriptures are more for human consciousness, where we can go way up in the material world, way down in the material world, or begin our actual spiritual progress. It's an extraordinary, actual, great fortune to be born as a human being, especially and without any comparison during the influence of Mahaprabhu. Is like nothing compares to that good fortune.
Inconceivable.
I have a question.
Yes.
What does it mean by lower species?
Lower species, it can mean multiple things. One, it can mean just like on this world, lower species than a human. And that means just animals.
Like less intelligent, less conscious?
Right, you can say like a monkey or a deer or a bird, but then you can go lower than that into like a spider or like an amoeba, right? Like a tree. Everything that's alive is alive, and it's perpetuated by a soul. So that's astounding when you really like look around you and you're like, whoa. So that's what that means. And then there's also lower planes of life that are described within this universe. So there's lower planets. There are demonic beings that may live in these other planets and demonic societies. And that's all spoken of. I know for people now, it's like, oh, there might be life on other planets. Like it's like a big controversial thing to say. For the Vedas, it's like matter of fact, right? I mean, we're in a humongous universe, and there's definitely all kinds of life on all kinds of other planets. So, I mean, some of that life would be considered lower in terms of consciousness, and some of that life is considered higher in terms of consciousness. And there's a great sort of battle that's constantly being perpetuated at a universal scale between light and dark, the devas and the asuras, etc. That's always happening in the universe. So, not to talk too much, but that's basically what it's being referred to. Okay, so just in summary, we're in a world that is from, receiving its energy from the divine, and it's ephemeral, it's changing. There's higher planes, there's lower planes, and the desires and the activities of the jivas that are living within it are perpetuating it. Okay, then verse 3 and 4. Narupamasyeha tato balabhyate nanto na chadir na cha sampratishtha ashvatthamenam suviruddhamulam asanga shastrena dridhena chitva tatah pradam tad parimargitavyam yasmin gatana nivartanti bhuya tameva chadyam purusham prapadye yata pravritti prasrita purani.
In the human plane, this inverted form of the people tree of this material world is inconceivable without Vedic knowledge. Neither its beginning, nor its middle, nor its end can be perceived. From the association of devotees, one acquires the sharp acts of detachment from the mundane. Using the weapon to cut down that illustration.
Oh no, that's it.
I think it's, he's one more. Yeah, that's right.
No, that's my mistake.
Using the weapon to cut down that illusory tree of one's mundane existence, which is stubbornly rooted in the aversion to the Supreme Lord. One attains to the plane of no return, which is the lotus feet of the Lord. With pure devotion, one should approach the holy lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Vishnu for shelter and pray, I surrender unto the original person, the Supreme Lord of all, by whose illusory potency, Maya, this perpetual tree of material world has appeared. Free from vanity and delusion.
No, go ahead.
Free from vanity and delusion, aloof to the holy association and unholy association, dedication to self-realization, desireless, liberated from duality of joy and sorrow, undeluded, those surrendered souls reach the eternal goal.
So, just in summary, you find yourself swirling in this plane, surrender to the Lord. Then, so many beautiful qualities. Dedication to self-realization, desirelessness, liberated from duality of joy and sorrow, undiluted. That's how you pull yourself from being completely swirled and caught up in this. Okay. Then in verse 6, Atad bhasayate suryo na shashanko na pavakaha yad gatva na nivartante tadnama paramam maha mamai vamso jivaloke jivabhuta sanatana manashasthani prakriti sthani karashati.
The
surrendered souls reach my eternal abode, never to return to this world. Neither sun, nor moon, nor fire, nothing can illuminate that all-illuminating supreme abode. The soul is a particle, potency of mind. Although it is eternal, for worldly existence it adopts the 5 mundane senses and the mind, which is the 6th.
Shariram yadavapnoti yadchapyutkramatishvaraha grihitvaitani samyati vayurgandhani vasayat Shrotram chakshu sparshanam cha rasanam ghanameva cha adhishtaya manaschayam vishayanupasevate Udkramantam sthitam vapi bhunjanam va gunanvitam vimudhananupashyanti ashyanti jnanachakshusha.
The soul is the master of the
You'll have to
body.
have that a little closer too.
The soul is the master of the body. When it departs the body, it goes to enter another, carrying these subtle senses as the wind carries fragrance from its source. Should I read the second one?
Yeah. Does that make sense? Critical principle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Presiding over the ear, eye, skin, tongue, and nose, and also the mind, the living entity enjoys the sense objects of sound, form, touch, taste, and smell.
Number 10 as well.
I don't really understand that one.
So, Krishna is saying, you're the master of this body. This body allows you the senses to perceive sound, form, touch, taste, and smell. And what are those senses? The ear, the eye, skin is touch, the tongue, and the nose. Taste, smell, right? So you've been given a body to enjoy these sense objects. Why? Because you want to. So, there you go. Now you're the master of the body. You're not the body, you're the master of the body. But this body is allowing you to play around in this little world of these little sensory experiences.
Thank you. Those who are thus deluded cannot see the soul when it is departing the body, residing in the body, or when enjoying it through the senses in the body. Those with the eyes of wisdom can see.
That's a very common, a lot of scriptures say that. Those who have eyes can see. And, Krishna's saying here, those who actually understand can understand that there's a soul inside who's actually running things, when the body's dying, it's because the soul departed, right? That when the body's living, it's because there's something residing in the body. When the body's going after these different sense objects, it's because of the soul that's residing, desiring that, right? Who has eyes can see that. Who has wisdom can see that. Who doesn't, it's just random chance and potassium and sodium ions exchanging electric charges.
It's like Srila Guru Maharaj said, like a glove is just sitting on the ground, sitting there, But when someone puts on the glove, then it looks like the glove is alive. So this body looks like it is a living thing because there's someone in there. As soon as that someone leaves, I was with my mother when she departed from her body, and it was like the whole body deflated like a pair of pants when you take them off and they just fall on the ground. And of course it was auspicious, she was hearing the holy name and everything was lovely, but it was quite an experience to see that. The whole reason this thing looks alive is because there's someone alive in it. And when that thing is gone, there's no symptom anymore of life because there's no one there.
The same eyes are just suddenly dead.
Yeah, just like,
Same exact eyeball chemically, and you can just be like, oh, it's done.
yeah.
Yatanto yoginashchainam pasyantyatmanyavasthitam yatanto pyakritatmano nainam pasyantyachetasaha yadaditya tejo jagadbhasayate khilam yachandramasi yachagnav tattejo vidhi mamakam gamavishya cha bhutani Dharayamyaham ojasa Ushname chaushadhi sarva Somo bhutva rasatmakaha.
Do you want to?
Let's pass that to Joe.
Thank you. And the sincere seekers see the soul present within, but persons of poor understanding and lacking in self-control cannot see the soul despite their endeavors. The light of the sun that illuminates the entire universe, the light of the moon, and the radiance of fire know that to be mine. Entering the earth, I maintain all beings by my potency, and in the form of life-giving moon, I nourish the crops.
Just one important thing to hear in verse 11. Persons of poor understanding and lacking in self-control cannot see the soul. Why is that important? One of the profound things that all of us are forced to do in life is to grapple with ourselves. And that's where the chemical idea of psychology, the chemical idea of the body basically breaks down. Because why are you grappling with yourself? And who's grappling with who? And the utilization of our free will to go into the arduous process of self-control, right? To control your urges, to control your patterns, to try to become a new person, all these kinds of things. That's going to require you to go deeper. You're going to start to understand that there's layers in you, right? And if you have Krishna's guidance from Bhagavad-Gita, you're going to start to understand, oh, wait, there is an actual selector switch inside me that's very, very deep in there. And I do have a layer of my mind that's reacting to the stimuli of this world. And then I have a deeper layer in me called buddhi that has some higher goal that I can use to track my way and tell my mind yes or no, right? You have to know, in order to become self-controlled, you have to go through all this stuff in a way where it's not theory anymore, right? So that's why those who have some self-control can actually start to perceive the soul. Otherwise, you don't understand what's going on, that there actually is consciousness at the basis of all of it, and that consciousness can assert itself as the master of the body.
And it's interesting, the word self-control, because so there's an option, there's an alternative to self-control. That means something else is controlling. Either I'm going to be in control, meaning I know I have something I'm going toward, and I'm going to do what it takes to go to that. But if we don't, then we're being controlled by the mind constantly. And that is a merciless master. You don't get any days off, no time and a half. Merciless, not like, oh gee, thanks a lot. It's like, get going over here, and you're like, oh, now you can lament, and now you can get angry, and now you can, okay, well. But self-control means I am finding out what is good for me, and I need to know who I am first, and then go toward that and do the needful for that. Then there's some actual knowledge coming. The gentleman on the...
Anyways, I was just thinking, there are different types of different conceptions.
You'll have to speak in a minute.
There's different conceptions of freedom. in the West, or in general, in the world, freedom is how fast I can satisfy my senses. Like the fastest, like then I'll be most free. But then there's a counteractive conception that it's the opposite, right? That my senses are not to be satisfied. Something else, much higher, I should be satisfied. And that is real true freedom and actual independence. Right? All the devotees are very free. They are not tied down by anything because of their devotion. And that's real freedom. But here it's how fast I can get that new car, or how fast I can get this and that. Then I'll be happy, then I'll be satisfied, then I'll be free. And so, different conception.
I think that's very well said. In Sanskrit, there's a word called Vega. Vega is translated in English maybe as urge. And your senses have urges. And most people are literally controlled by those urges, just like a horse is controlled with reins. The minute that urge comes, it's like, go, satisfy me. And when you're not in control of yourself, what do? You instantly go to try and satisfy it. And you try and satisfy another one. It's like, think of it as an itch. It's like every time you get an itch in your body, you're like, you're just instantly controlled. So that, you're right. And then people are thinking, man, I really itch right here and I can't get it. You know what I mean? Like, I just can't get at it. Or like you have some desire and it's like you can't satisfy it. And then you think, man, it'd be so great if I had this and that and that and this, and then I could satisfy my desire. And you're right, in the West that's called freedom. The freedom to satisfy every single urge is like the most free. But a deeper idea is the freedom to not be controlled by any of your urges is actual freedom. And that's a much deeper idea. Okay. 14. Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehamashrita Pranapana Samayukta Achamyanam Chaturvidham Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sannivishto Matasmriti Jnanam Apohanam Cha Vedaischa Sarvairahameva Vedyo Vedanta Gridveda Vedeva Chaham.
Entering into the bodies of the living beings as the power of digestion, I digest the 4 types of eatables: chewed, sucked, licked, and drunk, through the agency of the ascending and descending vital airs. I am situated as the supersoul within the heart of all souls, and from me arises the soul's remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, according to his actions. I alone am the sweet absolute, to be known through all the Vedas. I am the revealer of the Vedanta.
Vedas.
Vedas.
Mm-hmm.
And I am the knower of the Vedas.
Yeah. So this chapter is called Purushottama Yoga, which means we have to start seeing ourselves not as ourselves by ourselves. We are never by ourselves. Even when we're embodied, Krishna is saying, even all these bodies, I'm giving them nourishment. I'm entering into the earth and giving the nourishment to all the plants that are existing. In your own body, you have to sustain yourself by eating. I'm processing all of that through the ascending and descending airs, right? The different pranas that are energizing every part of your body, right? Like everything is not only being done by you. It's also being done by Purushottam. So one way to think of Purushottam is the soul of your soul. You're never without the soul of your soul. Krishna is always near you, next to you, and his form is Purushottam. So we should understand that, he is ultimately Guru. Acharyam Mam Bijanayan, as he says in another shloka here. He is the sweet absolute to be known by the Vedas, and he is Veda. So when some wisdom will come to you, some idea will come to you, some revelation might come to you, that's from Krishna. But you are never alone. It's always to be like constantly remembered. You know, you're not in a position where you're by yourself in an inimical and scary world. It's not like that.
And it's very, to me, very fascinating to see the normal scientific conception of noticing this happens, and then this happens, and then that happens, and then that happens. So now we understand that.
Yeah.
But they're never asking the question why. Why does that happen because that happened? Like Krishna's saying something really fundamental. Like, how are you digesting your food? Oh, well, it's because there was these acids and there was, oh yeah, really? Why does that happen? He's saying, that's all my potency. Become aware of me. How come I can do things? I don't know. How am I doing this? I don't know. Become aware that this is all my energy and I'm there. I think that's so wonderful. Because I was looking at a book of anatomy and physiology once, and especially physiology. I was looking at it, and I'm like, this isn't explaining anything. It's just saying this happens and then this happens. It's just observing something, but it doesn't know why this causes this at all. There's no explanation about that.
I have another question.
I think.
I think that is talking about the 4 types of eatables, which I want to ask about also later, is kind of relative also to like digesting consciousness and like experiences in the same way that we digest matter and fuel our bodies, we digest knowledge and experiences with the power of Krishna.
That's true, for sure, because he's saying right there, and you're right, I am the power of remembrance and forgetfulness. How do you forget something? I don't know. How do you remember it? Oh, I just remembered something. How did I do that? I don't think I did that, actually. Oh, I just thought that was my idea. Really? How did you do that? I just did it. You know, I'm just like totally awesome. I'm like amazing.
Is there something behind the 4 types of eatables? Like, does that describe something? The tube sucked like a drunk?
It's given.
No, it's a very common phrase, actually. It's also, you'll see in the songbook a lot. Chaturvidha, this is where it says Annam Chaturvidham at the end of 14. That's there. And Chaturvidha, you'll see like a lot, that terminology. Just means there's 4 ways of consuming things that you consume.
It's giving some detail. Because there's always so much detail, actually. Nothing is being left out. Nothing's vague. It's really an interesting facet of this type of knowledge. It's so detailed. It's like, but as an analogy, you can certainly say that, what you're saying. Yeah, we're also digesting many things.
Like in Ayurveda, the science is, if you really go into like Veda, think about Veda. Veda means knowledge. So I mean, there's Veda about like everything, right? Now there's modern corollaries to that, but you know, there's things that talk about, you know, how different foods and how they're consumed are helping you to digest them, and that you should eat this food in this way, you should drink it in this way. You know, this food, I mean, there's things that are sucked, for example, that you could, you know, open it up and break it down and not eat it in that way, but it actually is meant to be eaten in that way. You know, like in Ayurveda, there's things like that, right? So there's a whole science and very detailed comprehension of the different ways that you interact with matter with this body, and also regulating it so that it's most helpful to you. There's just an incredible degree of detail and sophistication to the culture. But in this sense, it's just literally talking about the things that you consume with your body. But I think that your illumination is actually quite beautiful on that, because it really is, in so many ways, we're consuming different things from our environment. And, our processing of that, our taking of that in and feeling experience from it, and then ultimately digesting it and moving forward and receiving something from it is all happening with the Lord.
Lovely.
Okay, Jagranga Bro.
My question was, if it's the Lord's power, who is the power? Where does Hara, where does the divine feminine come into play in this?
Yeah. So actually, that's Krishna. When Gurudev says Krishna's not telling so much actually in Gita. I mean, we read Gita and we're like, wow, this is a lot. But Gurudev said actually Krishna is hiding something. And in Bhagavad Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam, it is a little more revealed. That ultimately, Krishna has his counterpart, the divine feminine. In Guru Maharaj's very important purport, his commentary on the verse 66 of chapter 18 of the Gita, he's pointing to these. Krishna's using a Sanskrit literary ornament called dhvani. And dhvani means echo. But in the literary sense of Sanskrit, the echo means it's dual meanings, or more than dual meanings. You're saying that one sound, but it's replicating multiple times. And so dhvani can mean that there's multiple layers of meaning happening in Sanskrit. And that's one of the most beautiful and also very difficult to comprehend aspects of Sanskrit. There's one famous verse in Srimad Bhagavatam called the Atmarama verse. And, Mahaprabhu is famously known for giving...
Studying that right now.
Yeah, and she's reading this in Chaitanya Saritamrita. Mahaprabhu gave 64 different explanations of the Atmarama verse. Because there's so much contained in that one word. So Guru Maharaj is giving a commentary like Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. Vraja can mean to go, but it can also mean, it's Krishna saying Vraja, right? So Vraja is also referring to Vrajadham, which means Vrindavan. So he's saying, surrender to me in the mood of Vraja. But that's an echo, that's a dhvani, right? So some hidden meanings are given. And it's very important because Krishna at the very end, when he gives his ultimate instruction, is pointing to Vrajadham. But Srimad Bhagavatam is about Vrajadham ultimately. It's starting on a very broad level and then moving through all the cantos to the end, which is all Vrajalila. And ultimately moving to Madhura Lila Parakya Bhav Srimati Radha. So Guru Maharaj said, actually, if you read Bhagavad Purana, the whole book is about her. But it's so carefully mentioned. Shukadeva Goswami is very carefully, because even he knows this is like the rarefied air, to be approached very carefully. He said the whole book is about her, but she's not mentioned once. Hare Krishna. And then, Mahaprabhu is giving ultimately, entrance by his divine grace, the highest to the lowest in Kali Yuga Pavana. So we can say, ultimately from Mahaprabhu we know that there's the potent and the potency. And that the Lord places himself, he's a consumer of love. And he can be captured and controlled by love. And, these types of high things, his sweet nature to be captured and controlled by love, the entire infinity. It's like sometimes it's said, it's like the emperor of a great empire, and his little daughter can take him by his pinky and pull him everywhere around the house, right? He's so powerful, he has legions at his command, but because of her love, he's controlled like that. So, ultimately the potency of the Lord has its own very detailed expression. And ultimately all the avatars and everything are all serving that divine Leela. And the potency is manifesting in different forms, and they all have their own personalities and their own Leela. I mean, we're talking about the source of consciousness. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, Umo Rama Satya Sachi Chandra Rukmini Radha avatar Sabe Amanayava. Like Radha has her own avatars in many, many different ways. But these are very, very hidden things. And sometimes Mahaprabhu is called Channaya avatar, the hidden avatar. Channaya avatar Lukano Kahar Radha Ruchi Rupa Chande. We have no business discussing these things, really. They are so high and so rare and so great. But somehow we've come into this association. We don't even know how or why. We certainly didn't, conjure up a desire for it because we have no clue. But ultimately everything is coming down to the potency and her service to the potent. But that's only pointed at, very hinted at in a very hidden way in Sri Gita. And where Gita ends, then Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita begin. Shalom. Namaskar.
All right. 14. The problem with this Prakriti Sahajiyas is that they want to discuss these things, but their heart is completely unqualified to even begin to understand. That heart has to become so pure to begin to understand Krishna Lila. But they want to discuss all these high things, and in doing that they're committing terrible offenses because they can't see anything but mundane. So we know this about ourselves. So we are only approaching that subject with the utmost reverence, honor, worshipful mood. This is all far beyond, it makes religion look sinful. It's such purity, so noble. Actual devotion is such a noble thing. So we are worshiping that, but we don't enter into big discussions about that. It's just far, far beyond us. But somehow, or by the potency of Mahaprabhu and his followers, is the great Vaishnava-acharyas, some tiny seed of, oh, that is wonderful, that I want to worship, has come. It's a miracle.
Okay, 16. Oh, sorry, Prabhu. Well,
I did.
it's a very, very short chapter, so.
I do have one more question.
Okay. Well, it's actually 8 o'clock though. Okay, let's go quick.
Question later.
Yeah,
Well, just go ahead.
always have two classes, one in here and the next one in
Just go ahead.
So, when approaching these things, going on pilgrimage, going to holy places, coming to ashrams, going to pastimes where going to where these leelas have taken place, and coming from our own position, from the mean streets of exploitation, black market dealings, fallen desires, what if those things take place in holy places like that? What if we make offenses? How do we rectify that behavior? Is it up to us? Or is it only based on mercy or grace? Let's say
Oh, you mean when you're on pilgrimage?
pilgrimage or going to holy places.
Guru Maharaj said you have to learn to walk on your head. Even the dust is made of a higher thing than you're made out of. So we're not trying to like get all excited about something that we have no entrance into. We're just in a mood of worship, and whatever affection will come from that environment, that's up to them. We're not at all trying to like get all worked up about something. We are in a land which is made of something higher than I am made out of. And it is very affectionate, but we're not trying to stuff that into our little brain. It's very important, actually.
Maybe another. I feel Sudar once told a story of when he was in Navadvip with Gurudev, and he went to visit his Gurukuli friends, and they dress very nice and they're chanting kirtan very nice. And I think Sudar could tell the story a little bit better, but when he returned, and Gurudev said that their spiritual life is already over, right? Where it becomes an external thing only. You know, we have a tendency in us, we're not to be external. How do we rectify that if we've become completely external?
So 2 things. One, Gurudev did not like people. So sometimes people would come to India and they would just want to go here and there, here and there, here and there, like it's like a tourist expedition. And Gurudev didn't like that. Why? Because you're not going to receive the mercy of the Dham unless you go there as service. So when Gurudev says go to Vrindavan, go to Govardhan, then we go to Vrindavan and Govardhan. We're not going to be like, oh my God, I can't wait to go to Govardhan. I want to do this and that and that and this. Like, never like that. If there's some seva, then you go. You don't enter into the Dham like to with the same mentality as you go to like Disneyland or something. You know what I mean? Like, you don't go there with the same mentality that you go everywhere else in the world, or that we are conditioned to. Maybe that we're not doing so much anymore. But we're conditioned to go to every place and see what we can exploit from there. That's just what we do, right? And if we can really exploit, then it's like, hey, that's a great place. Really loved it. You know what I mean? And that's just our mentality, right? It's like, oh, you went to Govardhan, how was it? I don't know, the beds were kind of bad, and there's a lot of mosquitoes, you know, like, you're going to go to Govardhan and like think like that, but yeah, we're going to in some way, right? Because that's just how we think. But, you know, Gurudev would say, when Gurudev says go to Govardhan Parikrama, then you go to Govardhan Parikrama, because Gurudev said to go to Govardhan Parikrama. And then there's some seva mood, right? You're presenting yourself to the Dham. Here I am, a fool and a hypocrite, and my patterns are totally offensive, right? And I'm presenting myself. You see me. I present myself. May I be of use, right? Even as I am. Then there's some maybe safety there. You know, we don't come there in some mood of like, all right, who's got the best lassi? You know, like, or whatever. Like, it's not like that. So that's how we protect ourselves. You have to go in a mood of seva, and you have to present yourself with honest humility. And that know that it's a very rare lifetime that you can go to Kusham Sarovar and Manasaganga and Radhakunda and Shyamakunda and Haridev Temple and all these beautiful, unbelievable places, really. Radha Ramanji, like Madan Mohanji, so many. So many amazing things, really. All right, 16. Davimo purusho loke ksharascha kshara eva cha kshara sarvani bhutani
Udashokshara uchate
Uttama purushasvanya paramatme tudahritaha Yolokatrayam avishya vibhartyavyaya ishvara yasmaksharam astitoham aksharadapi chotama atosmi loke vedacha pratita purushottama.
That's you, Karuna.
In this world, there are two types of beings, the perishable and the imperishable. All beings from Lord Brahma down to the lowest stationary life forms are known as perishable, as they are fallen from their true nature. But those who are situated in their eternal spiritual nature are known as imperishable, eternal associates of the Lord. And completely distinct from both these types of beings is the Supreme Person, who is known as Paramatma, the Super Soul. He is the Supreme Lord, entering the three worlds in his eternal form. He maintains all beings in the universe. Because I am transcendental to the perishable beings and also superior to my imperishable eternal associates, my glories are sung in the world and in the scriptures as Purushottama, the Supreme Person.
So there's three things happening in the world. There's the perishable form, there's the Jiva soul, and there's Purushottam. And Purushottam is in everything. Everything is sustained by his attentive energy. And that should never be forgotten. And if you can remember that, it's very difficult to remember. You might go your whole day and not remember it once. But if you can remember that, like twice a day, twice an hour, twice a minute, twice every second, you know what I mean? Like move that into your consciousness. Then there's safety and connection. That's Purushottama Yoga. This chapter is called Purushottama Yoga. Yoga means connect. Don't just know, but try to connect to Purushottam in every moment. He's there. Yo mam evam asambuddho janati purushottamam sasarvavid bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata iti guhyatamam shastram idam uktam maya nagha etat buddha buddhiman syat kritakrityascha bharata.
O Bharata, one who is free from delusion and knows me as the Supreme Person of eternal, all-conscious, ecstatic form, is a perfect knower of full-fledged theism, and he worships me in all ways, in the spiritual relationships of tranquility, servitorship, friendship, parenthood, and consorthood. O pure-hearted Arjuna, I have thus explained to you this most hidden treasure of all the scriptures. O Bharata, embracing this in their hearts, the persons of high theistic intelligence attain the perfection of their endeavors.
Haribol. In other words, every endeavor comes to the supreme goal of the endeavor, which is love of God. So all their endeavors are successful. Everything is going to the supreme position.
What is consorthood?
It's just like in this world, there's romantic relationships, which are the cause of all the suffering in the world, practically. This world is a reflection of divine reality. So whereas relationships on the plane of exploitation are exploitation. Like, I love you means you do the best thing to worship me. I like the way you're worshiping me more than anybody else worships me. Right? I mean, if we're really honest, I'm just saying, there's different gradations of that, and of course there is household life, which is mutual advancement in spiritual life, and so on and things. But if we gotta get really, down to it. But that is a reflection of the highest relationship with God. And that's called divine consorthood, which is completely the most exalted feelings of devotion. And it is the root of all other relationships. So that's a very big subject.
But consort basically means, like, if you're, man and woman are together, that's what that means, the consorthood. And that is considered to be the highest plane of love of the Lord. It's called Madhura Rasa. Okay. Well, one who is free from delusion, asam muddho, janati purushottamam, knows Purushottam, knows me as Purushottam. Sasarvavid bhajati mam. He knows all truth and he worships me. Sarva bhavena bharata. Bhava means mood. So with every mood, he's worshipping me. And these moods are laid out there, the tranquility, servitude, friendship, parenthood, and consorthood. That's what the bhavas are. And then iti guhyatamam shastram. I just gave you a guhyata, a supremely hidden shastra. This is not known. This is like a new thing that Krishna's giving. Many new things Krishna's giving in Srimad Bhagavad-Gita for that time. So, to understand this, embrace this in your heart, and your life will be successful. Okay, iti Shri Mahabharate Shatasahasryang Samhitayang Vyasikyam Bhishma Parvane Srimad Bhagavad-Gita Supanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Purushottama Yoga Nama Panchadasho Dhyayaha. Okay, Jai Srimad Bhagavad-Gita Upanishad ki Jai. Jai Shri Krishna Shri Arjuna ki Jai. Kurukshetra Dham ki Jai. Jai, all the devotees reading Gita tonight ki Jai. Jai Vishnu Pashila Bhakti Rakshaka Shri Dhadev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Vishnu Pramukh Sathakar Shila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Rupa Anuga Guru Varga ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Prananande. Oh, chapter 16.
I know. How are we going to wait a whole week?
I don't know if this is one of your first Gita classes or not. But yeah, that's the godly and ungodly natures. Pretty intense chapter.
When I first went to the temple, I went to the temple and then I got into a conversation with the temple president, and he read me this chapter. And I'm like, wow. I know which one I am. It's like a little biography of my nasty qualities. But anyway, it's very uplifting though. It's not at all discouraging, because when you know your illness, you know the cure, then you can understand that the cure is there. So it's very lovely.
Joy.
All right, Purushottam Yoga ki Jai.
Jai.
Thank you all, really, so beautiful.
Jai.
Jai.
Every Gita class is a Maha Mahotsav.
Okay, Hari Harai Nama Krishna. Who's singing?
Dylan, all right,
Hey,
sweet.
that's not fair.
Are you okay to sing? Do you want to try? I think you know this one. I mean, you don't have to. It's
Hold on, wait, pause for 5 seconds.
We're all friends here, Dylan. This is like a great opportunity. That's all. Sure.
Maybe Dylan sings in like 2 weeks.
Okay, all right. Dylan.
Or why don't you sing along with the leaders? Krsna.
Gautandra Giriraj ki jai.
Well, can I sing?
What page?
60.
Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama Yadavaya Madhavaya Krishavaya Nama Yadavaya Madhavaya Krishavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Shriman Sudha Gopal Govinda Ram
I will get a chance to serve the great servants of the Six Goswamis.
I like Tasmata Padame and Mora Panchaga.
Ah, good. Haribol, Jai Mahaprabhu, Jai Mahaprasad Ji. Jai. Oh, thank you, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar. I will, oh.
Am I right?
I'm putting this.
What's your problem, man?
I can't do
Oh,
that.
sorry.
Hey, I was wondering, do you know where we could get,
Dandavat, dear devotees.
Maybe give him a heart attack.
Oh, sorry. Well, you know,
2 weeks?
it's a little dose.
It's happening.
Oh.